yeah, I was like, it's better that you record considering this is my first Patriots perspective meeting, and then we make sure we both have it, right?
Yeah, it's so funny that you consider me a patriot. I I am just somebody who's passionate about truth, and wherever it seems to align is where it aligns, you know. But
Exactly. That's
that
me
is a
too.
patriot, you know, and it's funny because I've really appreciated the word, but I also see that people from around the world are patriots.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, it's very interesting. So, first of all, I want to say welcome everybody to the first episode of Patriots Perspective News.
So
Carmen
fun.
and I are just meeting. We're just going to have a chat. I don't know really even why we're connected. And, Carmen, I want to give a little bit of background on why I reached out to you.
Okay,
So
cool.
I first saw you on Michael Jaco with Jesse and Madison.
Hmm.
And you were just the mom in the room, sitting very quietly, asking all the right questions. And I just had a really good feeling about all of you, but especially you.
Thank you.
And then I looked you up and I saw you had a show with your daughter.
Hmm.
It was absolutely adorable.
Thank you.
And
Let me ask my mom. It's so much fun.
yeah, so let me ask my mom. I highly recommend that all of you tune into Carmen and her daughter's show because it's very much maybe conversations that you can have and you can start to have with your kids, or maybe even get your kids to listen in on it, or things that you can do together. I love the new Bible verses, one that you
The
just,
red letters. Yeah.
yes, the
Thank
red
you.
letters of what Jesus is saying. So Carmen,
I
I
thought
have
I'd have to
no
talk
idea
her into
anything
it.
else about you. Honestly, I have no idea anything about you, but I do, you know, I'm a person that I'm a humanitarian. I follow whatever Jesus says. It may not be what other people in the church may think I should do, because I'm the girl who will go and sit and have a pina colada at the bar with you
Yeah.
and chat it up and get you talking about things that you would, you know, maybe never do. But I believe Jesus did that, and I believe that's what we're supposed to do. I don't think we're supposed to stick our heads under the rug and pretend like things are not happening. So when I saw you as a part of that conversation, I thought, you know, that's a great place to start for me to
Yeah.
start with Carmen.
I love
And
it.
yeah, so can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure, of course. But first, I want to tell you how thankful I am that you're stepping out. This is not fun.
No, not at all.
Stepping out is, you know, everyone wants to, but few do. And we need more. We do. We need more. And what's so fabulous is God has all of it orchestrated
Yeah.
if we can just show up with our instruments, you know. And
Yes.
so I'm proud of you for doing it. And there's so many unknowns, but it's such a good and healthy thing to do, is to expand into something that it's an adventure.
Absolutely. And, you know, I feel like there's not enough conversations, of truthful conversations that are happening, or a lot of people are kind of going at each other. Well, that's not right. This didn't happen. That's supposed to happen. You know, it's like, hold on, let's all take a deep breath, you know, and do a little research ourselves, because
Yes.
my background is in technology. I believe we are in a digital war.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've never seen anything like it. I believe a lot of things have been in front of us for a very long time that even I didn't realize. So I'll tell you, when my eyes started to be open, you know, slightly, is I have a team, and I'll call them kids because they're like my kids in the Philippines, and I am their niña, so I'm the godmom. And I had told one of my godson, whenever you get married, they kept saying, Niña, when are you going to come to the Philippines? And I would say, I'll come when one of you gets married, because I'd done enough research to realize that none of them were probably going to get married. So I didn't have to hold to a promise. It's very expensive to get married there. And so I thought, well, I will
That's
go
a safe,
when they
high
get married.
standard.
Yeah. But I won't go into that, but I did end up going to the Philippines in 2020, the very beginning of 2020, and stayed there about a month, and going to the wedding, christenings. And I happened to be on a private island with a group of very influential Filipinos that were married to Chinese people or Chinese men that were very strong men. And they were the ones that made me realize that our news media, which I was on and a part of in the Silicon Valley,
right,
they were the ones who said, your news media is a bunch of lies. And I was like,
right.
well, I do know how easy it is. You know, I can say whatever I want,
Right.
and people believe it. I just so happen to tell the truth as
Right.
I know it. However, I'm like, it could be really easy to spew a lot of lies. And I did know about the Gannett 4 a.m. talking points that a lot of other people didn't know about. Mm-hmm. So I asked them, what do you listen to? And they said, the only thing that we really believe is the Epoch Times. Wow. And I said, but why? And they said, because it's the only paper the communists have tried to burn down.
Yeah.
So I got back.
What is Satan attacking? That's the right one. That's how I feel about religion too, because the only one Satan's after is Christ. And so to me, that says everything.
Yes, absolutely. The name of Jesus is everything. And I feel like we don't even, even as Christians, sometimes we don't do enough of a good job of saying, in the name of Jesus, this is, you have to call upon the name of Jesus for this to actually happen. And for, the Bible tells us that, the devil flees at that name. It's the only name above all names, and we don't use it enough. We say God, we maybe say Allah for people who are Muslim. And we just don't utilize that enough in terms of the power that we have. So Carmen, tell me about you.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I kind of got you. I set you down. No,
it's okay. I want you to, because I want, we have just met. I do want everybody to know that's watching me. I don't know Carmen.
Yeah.
All I know is I saw her on that show. I sent you an email, and Carmen, you responded in like 30 minutes. And for that, I appreciate, because I hear a lot of other hosts.
I literally check it off. There's some that I look at and they're this long, and I'll read the first paragraph and I can already feel like a victim spirit, and I don't even finish it. I don't mean to be mean, but I don't have the time.
Okay.
But if it's somebody that I feel like, okay, this could be worth it, then I'll always get back to people.
That's good to know. That's really good to know, because it is important. I do feel like it's important to have, a starter guest like yourself on, because for one, I really know nothing really about you other than your
So I grew up in the Chicago area in Barrington, Illinois, and I quickly and swiftly got to the South because I hated being cold. I mean, it's just the truth.
One thing we have in common already.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'm out. And I left as young as I could. And then I spent, the last however many years in Dallas, moving all kinds of places in between for short periods of time or whatever. But I am a mother of 2, and I homeschooled my children until both of them were in high school. Actually 8th grade. And then I started when my daughter was 7. She got into acting because her cousin was in a commercial and she wanted to be in a commercial. And so then she ended up getting into, some made-for-TV movies, and she did Prison Break and different things like that. And it was really, really fun, but it's very boring to sit on a set. Yes. So I started talking with the producers on the set, and then I started, working on scripts and giving feedback and different things like that, and I loved it. And so next thing I know, I'm editing scripts. I am not an editor like grammar or things like that. I was editing them for continuity, or, this is too cheesy, or that kind of stuff, just kind of make them cooler. And then from there, because I was one of the few people that would be honest, because I guess a lot of times people who edit scripts are like, oh, this is really good, and it just flops. And I was like, this is horrible, this is good, Mm-hmm. And I think because my daughter was an actor, I understood a script not just from the storyteller's viewpoint, but from the actors. So there was that. And then when I did one of my biggest movies, we raised like $4 million in 3 months. It was amazing because
what movie was that?
It was called One Heart, and it hasn't come out yet. This is 10
hasn't.
years ago. It's supposed to come out this year. I was associate producer, so I wasn't in charge. I just helped raise the money for it, which I would never do again without control. But long story short, it was based on a story of these guys coming out of jail, or I'm sorry, these guys in jail, in the youth prison, playing a football game with a Christian school, which actually happened. It's based on a true story. It made international sports news. And because of that, I started this charity because I was started helping these guys that were coming out of jail as they were coming out, the actual ones that were on the field that night. And that just, I mean, I was doing the producing, but I was more into helping these guys. It's just, I think God built me that way.
Yeah.
I literally can look at a person, and I've been like this since I was young, and it was tough because I only see their good. It was a gift that I hadn't learned how to ground. So I could see these guys for their potential, and I was able to help them reach their potential. One of them ended up being in movies.
Oh, wow.
Another one, an MMA fighter. Another one works at a law firm. Another one has his own trucking company.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's been really fun, and that's kind of how I got involved in charities. And then how the Michael Jaco thing happened was I started, because I was so good at helping people develop themselves and was able to help people see their genius, I started doing that professionally also. So
Nice.
I just was researching everything and wanted to learn how to remote view so it could be another thing that I could offer my clients. And that's how I connected with Michael Jaco.
Okay, awesome.
And then the truth piece just came from immediately when all of this ruse began. I recognized the spirit as a narcissistic, controlling spirit. And so I was very against all of it, the masks, the lockdowns, all of it, just naturally. And my daughter even thought I was being kind of strange on the masks at first, but she's like, Mom, at most, we'll just do this for everybody for a little while. And I was like, but that's what they said with TSA. That's what they said with, Homeland Security. That's what they said with everything. And so it does become what it is.
Yes. And the minute we realize that, so I would like to go into talking about that, because I had a feeling we were going to have a strong connection of being the moms of many. Okay. Because it sounds like you're very much, naturally and organically, like I've never, gone into a situation where I've said, oh, I'm going to be your mentor or, but I'm naturally the mom. And because I don't, no matter what, I mean, I've had friends that they'll get upset, they'll go away for a while, but then they realize, okay, maybe she was right. Maybe she wasn't really, she's just outspoken before they were ready.
Right.
And, so speaking of that, one of the things that you just mentioned with TSA, let's tell everybody a little bit about like what TSA actually did. So, how that came to be, because I feel like a lot of people, they don't really know how things start, how this totalitarianism, I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly, but how it actually starts in society. If we remember, I remember, speaking of, you had said earlier when we were off camera, I think before we started recording, when I was flubbering around with my Zoom account.
I love it.
And technology, by the way, and I'm flubbering around with a Zoom account. I started another one so that just in case my professional one doesn't go away. But speaking of New York, okay, so I would fly back and forth into New York. I would go with my daughter. I would actually take my daughter with me. Matter of fact, instead of being the mom, she was in public school. She actually went to my aunt's school. My aunt was the principal of 2 schools.
Wow.
One of the schools was spoke roughly around 80% Spanish. I'm sure that she'll correct me. She'll be the first to correct me if I'm wrong with that. But it was very high speaking Spanish school. And I thought it was a great thing that No Child Left Behind came about, because even though my daughter went to the school, we had a situation in a couple of circumstances that I didn't realize as a mom. Okay. The first one was with my daughter when she was probably in 1st or 2nd grade. She came home and said, Mommy, they're making me take a milk. And I don't like milk. Like, she didn't like milk. She didn't want to drink milk. And I said, what do you mean, Macy, they're making you take a milk? And she says, yeah, and then I have to throw it away because I had taught her, you're not to throw anything away. Like, we don't throw anything away. Like if I have,
That's so cute.
clothing that, like, even if it's worn out, I'm like, you know what, there's always somebody that can, they can sew this up and utilize it. I just don't like to throw things away. So she was brought up with me, who's coming from grandparents who, were raised in the Great Depression,
right,
who would eat soured cantaloupe.
right.
And we just didn't throw anything away. So when I heard that that the children were being required to take a milk and throw it away if they didn't drink it, I went like to the school and I'm like, what is this? And I got it rectified for my daughter, but I didn't know I should have gone probably to the school board and
to
said,
the rest of the people.
Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous that you would take it, and they wouldn't give them water. What about they will give them milk, but they wouldn't give them water? They would give my daughter a hard time about just going and like even refilling a water bottle, like saying, oh no, you're not allowed to have water instead of milk. It's like, okay, that's a red flag. But I should have gone to the school. Hindsight is 2020, but I should have gone in front of the school board then and said, this is absolutely ridiculous, because somebody somewhere was probably getting paid off
trying to sell the milk.
And I really, and it's just been here recently that I think about those instances. So let's talk about 9/11. You said 9/11, you mentioned 9/11. You want to tell everybody like how that came to be in your...
Well, I mean, when I was just trying to show my daughter that, sometimes when you've been on the game board a little bit longer, you've seen the similar moves, right? And one of the things that I've realized very young, because my dad was a Marine Corps, he was a former Marine, and he actually instilled a lot of patriotism, but true patriotism, not an alliance to something that isn't,
Right.
honorable. And I also spent a lot of time listening to Dennis Prager because I was driving my children everywhere as a stay-at-home mom. And Dennis Prager really brings home the fact that with freedom comes responsibility. And I always really tried to share that with my children because I thought that if they didn't understand this, they're missing the basic tenets of being an American. Because when we give the safety and the security and the control to someone else, there's a price to be paid. And so when we all chose to allow the TSA to come in and literally x-ray us every time we go through, I knew that was not temporary. I knew that was going to continue on. And think about how ridiculous it is. I mean, they're doing it to old women, they're doing it to children, they're doing it to, it's so disruptive. And to me, there's so many other ways that you can do things, you really can clear people and know who they are and where they've come from. And I don't know. It seems silly to me that we have to go through so much to fly. It almost made me want to quit flying, then. But it looks like I might have to now. And we'll see how much longer I'll be able to do that. But yeah, I think that, and then to your point earlier about how things are presented, they're always presented in some beautiful little package, right? And how it's become so obvious to me. After my divorce, I went on a I'm responsible kick. And I started becoming a sovereign being. And when you become a sovereign being, you're responsible for everything for yourself. And one of the best ways to become good at that is to understand how the world around you works. And so I studied all the laws of the universe, all the different archetypes, and all the different mirrors. And I am self-aware. I'm open-minded. So what this did is it allowed for my bandwidth to get really large and understanding the way the world works, which is very important. And you start reading energy. You can start seeing things because the law of correspondence is always working. And I call it the Sherlock Holmes law because it's very similar to Sherlock Holmes, how he'll walk into a room and he's not clairvoyant, but he's noticing all of the things and he's catching it where most people just let them go by. And I now know how to catch those things. So what I see is how they couch things. They make something seem like it's good for you, and the average person who doesn't understand how nefarious some people are, some entities are, some systems are, they get caught up in, oh, let's do it because it's good for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how, and we give it away one second at a time. A way to, or an example of this would be, let's say this woman's married to a narcissist and she's gained a little weight, and he, being a narcissist, wants her to be thin again because it's a reflection on him. So he's going to get on her, except narcissists know better. So they want to be as manipulative as possible. So they'll say, you know, your mom died of diabetes, and so you should really watch what you eat. And it's because I care about you that I'm doing that. That's that same energy that's coming down. And I can see it, feel it, hear it, you know. And it's tough because it's hard to watch the people falling off the cliff and know that
I
they
mean,
are.
you would think, I mean, for example, even myself, right? I mean, when I was going back and forth to New York and taking my daughter, and I probably shouldn't have got off the school tangent because I was going to, you know, just say this is how naive I was, because I feel like a lot of people are out there going, well, it's okay. You know, oh, we'll just look past this. Just like you're saying, we'll look past the mask. Well, the thing that I look past, and keep in mind, that act is called the Patriot Act. Okay. Mm-hmm. For us going through TSA and being body scanned, they named the Patriot Act. Okay. They name things yep. so that they sound good. They make you feel good. They make you feel like you're, you know, being a part, because that is your civic duty. Right. And they love to use the term civic duty, you know, whenever you're supposed to be caring for everyone else. But as I was going through Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport, I believe it was October of 2001, October or November 2001, my mother-in-law, or I should say my ex-mother-in-law at the time, but she was a dear friend, love her to death, Nina, would carry a fart machine. That sounds super strange, but yeah. She loved to, she was a funny, humorous gal, and she just loved to carry, to kind of play tricks on everyone. Yeah. We go through security. The next thing I know, we are all down on the ground. I mean, they're doing a big, we don't know to this date if it was because of the fart machine. We teased her and Blanche said, you know, oh, this is probably because of the fart machine. But we were literally down on the ground at Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport because they said for us to go down. It was all at that point, I truly believe that was like today's mass test. Will these people like fall the minute we say fall? And guess what? Yes, I did at the time. Would I today? Absolutely not. I would stop and question. Yes. Why do I need to be down on the ground? Do you have a search warrant for my body? Come search me if you've got a search warrant. But basically, we've given them permission to search us out, and they have no right to search us out at all. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean. No, and it's funny that there's a gentleman by the name of Sam Vaknin, who he's a narcissistic specialist, and, you know, a counselor, a therapist, possibly even a psychiatrist. I'm not sure of his credentials, but he told a story once that was so amazing. But he had a class of students, and he said to everyone in the class, "Can you please stand up?" And they all stood up. And he said, "Okay, you can sit down now." And the whole point was, why did you give me the authority to stand up? And it's always been one of my pet peeves at church. I don't like somebody telling me when to stand up and when to sit. That's true. It absolutely drives me crazy. Or if you go to a big church event and they're like, everyone stand, and I will sit. I will sit. It drives me crazy. I'm not going to fake that I'm in the spirit. I'm just not. Yeah,
If I'm in the spirit, that's
true.
different.
I didn't
So
think about that. That's
yeah.
like a great.
But what he said was, if you were to go to a group of Israelis, according to him, that's where he's from, that if you were to ask everyone to stand, they would question you as to, why do you want us to stand? And I love that. I think that we accept the premise of the evil person because of our kindness. And this is what I was doing wrong, where I was always seeing the best of someone. And I didn't see evil. And so now I see both, and it's very helpful.
Yes, absolutely. That's actually a great point. So in a situation where someone is at church, I mean, do you have people around you? Because I know some people are going, wow, okay, that is true. Because I mean, we automatically, because everyone else around us is doing it, we do it. If the pastor says raise your hands, even though God hasn't said raise your hands, you raise your hands. So have you ever had anybody question you at church on things like that, like in a way that people have with masks?
No, I never had anyone say anything. I think they assume there's a reason, like
Yes.
a physical. She
Right.
apparently can't do it for some reason. I don't know, but I did have at an event a woman come by and go, "Come on, stand up! Like we're all getting up. We're raising the energy." And I don't like that. I don't. I don't like it. And maybe somebody has an argument as to why it's good, and I'd love to hear it. But I personally will stand on authority. And it's funny because I went to Carla, the girl that I do the Wilderness Church. She has Bochi's Place, which is the sex trafficking thing. And I had a little time that I was going to speak and share with everyone my experience with her and how, incredible she's been. And I wanted to add something into it where I asked everyone to stand up and then had them sit down and then ask them to stand up again.
Yeah.
And sit down again. And then could I keep doing it until I got to the number of the amount of times the average woman was raped, to show them how irritating it is.
That is great.
And she's like, "Oh my God, I wish you would have done that. That would have been so good."
That would have been great.
But yeah, I think that we have to stop accepting premises. We have to start saying, this isn't the game that I signed up for.
Well, and speaking of the sex trafficking, let's go into a little bit of that, because I know that that's a big part of what you're about as well.
Well, it's funny because it's become that. It's not anything that I have chosen. I just think that I am okay. I've done so much spiritual work that I don't pity anyone. And so I can be in the presence of these women or people who have been victimized, and they feel comfortable because I'm not pitying them.
Right.
I think that they feel uncomfortable. And so I think that's why they keep coming to me. And I want to give them the voice. I absolutely want to give them the voice if I have any way of helping.
And that's the main reason, I'm doing what I'm doing, so that other people can have a voice, because so many people have been shut off, or they don't know how to market themselves on YouTube and push to BitChute or other programs. And we have to get the word out. We can't be silenced, because that's what the enemy wants us to do. And when I say enemy, I mean Satan. These are satanic things that are happening, satanic glitches. And we have to all find good people. I was actually just speaking with one of my children, I'll say, in Pakistan, because I have kids in Pakistan, Philippines, China, Dominican Republic, and I'm very familiar with what's going on in Haiti because of my neighbors, being mostly Haitian and Cuban here in Miami. And their voice has been completely silenced. Things that, the original news cycle, I was awoken in the Philippines. Then I came back and someone had sent me Janet, I want to say Ossenbaum, the Fall Cabal.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So great researcher. But when you first watch the first 10 parts of Fall Cabal, and think about this is like in February of 2020, I'm thinking, I've just been hit with epoch times, to realize that
Mhm.
everything we really know is a lie, and the 6 major media companies that own us, and, and people utilize, that NBC presence every single day because, that's my validation.
Right.
It's NBC News. She has been on
Right.
NBC News. She's been validated by Cox Communications. That is it. Even my husband hated it when I would even like put that in my bio. And I'm like, but honey, that's why they want me to speak for them,
Right.
at this event. So, my speaking agent, that's the number one thing that he sells my presence on.
Right.
So, obviously no one's going back from truth to NBC. So we have to utilize what we have here.
Yes.
And when I was watching Fall Cabal, the very big awakening, because I knew so many Haitians and I thought I had actually helped raise money for the Clinton Foundation years ago. You kind of forget about things. I'm like, oh yeah, I helped raise money for the Clinton Foundation. And I'm like sitting there going, I can't even believe this. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm not, I don't follow a party per se. My grandfather was a mayor, Democratic mayor. And, I've pretty much started out voting on the Democrat ticket and then moved to Republican ticket because realizing that my values more aligned with that particular ticket. However,
Right.
I don't trust either one of them.
Right.
So, and because it's a matter of researching. So I literally go downstairs and the concierge that's in our building is Haitian. And I say her name and is this true? And she says, oh yes, Miss Christi. It was actually my friend's either sister that had her child stolen that stayed in the street.
Oh, one of the ones that they got caught when she was taking the kids out of the country.
Yes.
Oh my
But
gosh.
no, they didn't really get caught then. Okay.
Oh.
So the true story of that is even more elaborate than in Janet's documentary. The
Wow.
truth of the matter is one mom stayed in the street screaming and begging for her child back, saying they have stolen my child, and she would not go in. Okay.
Good for her.
And it's my understanding that the politicians were going to have her like committed to an insane asylum because who was running Haiti at the time? The Clinton Foundation, also backed by George Bush and Obama.
Right.
There's footage of it where they're all, when they say we're all in this together.
And Soros and yeah.
They're all in this together. Okay.
Yes.
We're the minions. Okay.
Right.
The Haitians are the minions. The Dominicans are the minions. They're always trying to pit each of them against each other.
Yep.
Because they know that if both of those parties come together on the same little island,
in trouble.
Yeah, there is going to be no more of them. So she says, yes, that a mother stayed in the streets and the politicians were going to have her committed to an insane asylum, but the people came out in support of the mother because they knew that the child was stolen. Mm-hmm. And they saw who took the child and like they knew. So, you think, what if that one mom hadn't stayed in the streets? It's my understanding she stayed in the streets for 6 days. Wow. No food, no water, but just wailing. I mean, and who gave her the voice to wail? Because we all know.
It gives me chills.
We lose our voices. And I'm like, for us to sit here and say nothing about it. So obviously I come up and I'm like, over a glass of wine, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot even believe this, like what I'm seeing. And so I just started taking notes. Then I started researching because it sounds fake. It sounds like a conspiracy theory. I agree 110%. Right. But if anyone bothers to go to DuckDuckGo, do a little bit of research, you may have to go to even the third page of DuckDuckGo now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's gotten bad. My daughter says that she goes to some Russian server.
Yes, Russian sites, and believe it or not, even Chinese. That I'll even put out messages like to my friends in China and Hong Kong and whenever we're trying to find something together in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, hey, what can you guys find on this? But, we're using the weapons we have against these totalitarian people who are trying to silence us. It's worse than a gun. And you are right. I really appreciate you coming on and
of course,
and saying what you said, because I believe we all need to speak out. And I appreciate people like you that are willing to answer the people who are just starting. I will do the same. I will commit to doing the same and telling what I know. I mean, it's, not a lot in comparison to some people, but I can also tell what I believe that I know. And speaking of that, Carmen, can you tell everyone a little bit about, the trafficking, what you know about the trafficking situation, the trafficking and rape, or anything like that they're really trying to shut down?
Yeah. So I have the, sex trafficking 101 that I learned from Carla and such. But then I have sex trafficking expert level from, Jesse and Madison. I had no idea. I mean, I knew that some of it was very nefarious, as far as I knew that guys were getting out of jail that shouldn't. They were having to move girls. Like, let's say a guy was getting out of jail in Houston. They'd have to take her out of the safe house in Houston and put her in a safe house in Dallas so that he couldn't find her, which, is horrible in itself. Why are these people getting out, And she was a minor at the time that it happened. She was taken from in a van from a school. Like, it's horrible what happened to her. But long story short, I thought they were one-offs. I didn't understand that Satan had become so organized in his corruption, and how the churches are involved, how the government is involved. I mean, CPS is absolutely frightening. I mean, honestly, even I have two friends that I know of whose grandchildren are now in CPS, and they're perfectly capable, beautiful people. And so there's no reason why they wouldn't let them be in the custody. And now the custody cases take a year. They are just telling them from the get-go, here, I'm going to take your 8-month-old, and you might get it back somewhere around 18 months old. You can see it 3 hours a week. It's absolutely beyond me. So there's going to have to be a lot of women. And this gets back to you saying that that's the energy. And I think that's what happened to me was I lost my mom at a young age. And instead of, woe is me, I just kind of like to swim in maternal energy. It just is fun for me. So I'm not bossy, but I do like to share with people how they can care for themselves better. And so when these women, when these people are coming out of this, they have so much that they're up against, because the police are involved, the CIA is involved, the FBI is involved, CPS is involved. I've got women that literally can't get pictures of kids onto the national website because they don't qualify, because of certain paperwork didn't go through a certain thing. And it's very, very convoluted. And so I think the noise is going to matter. I think that the expert level is, let's get these stories out there so people realize this is not a one-off. This is huge. And I'm ashamed to say that I accepted the one-off.
Yes.
I shouldn't have accepted the one-off.
Yeah. Well, I think we accept the one-off because I think it's a delusion of like an Amber Alert, let's say. Yeah. Because you may only get an Amber Alert maybe once a month on your phone.
Not even, yeah.
Yeah. So you may think, well, there's just one child gone,
And it's probably some stupid parent, but that's still not reason enough for us all to like, So I apologize to every victim that has ever come before that I didn't push as hard as I am pushing now. And I enjoy it. It's funny because if God would have told me you're going to be working with victims out of sex trafficking, or even the guys out of jail, I probably would have been like, that doesn't sound like what I want to do. But it has ended up being something that I am content in that I feel like I'm well placed because I have no issue. And I actually try to help them enjoy the journey because it is such a horrific and horrendous situation that they're coming out of that it, I think, is nice for them to be able to giggle and enjoy the moments that they have now that
Right.
they're free.
And do many of these ladies too, the other thing I think we don't think about is, did they have children that they had to give up, satanic ritual abuse? I mean, these are things that people think.
Yeah, there's different kinds. It depends on where the person came from. The ones that Carla predominantly has been working with are usually young. They were trafficked young, but they weren't part of satanic ritual abuse. That's another category.
Yeah,
But it's also something that is really tough because I look at what, like, in order for her to work with a girl, she can't have her kids there. There's so much work to go through to get them back to where they need to be, but they do definitely allow them to see their children and stuff like that. And then some of them don't have children because a lot of them were forced to get abortions whenever they were pregnant, and
yeah,
so it just depends on the situation. The SRA stuff is the biggest awakening for me. And we joke around about it now, but Carly's like, man, Mom, I used to think that all those old women were crazy. Like, oh, Satan's here, Satan's there,
yes,
Satan's in the
yeah.
movie,
I
Satan's.
actually on your last podcast, which we definitely should put the link below.
Yeah, yeah, please do, please do.
Yeah.
But she's like, Satan's on the loose. Like,
Yes.
she's really
I
seeing
thought the
it.
same. I kid with Carly. I was thinking the same thing because you hear about it, and the enemy has done such a good job of putting things on Netflix, putting
Oh,
things
yes.
out for your kids to watch. I mean, I remember when my mother-in-law, the Nina that carried the fart machine, would absolutely freak out if I would have my daughter watch anything Harry Potter or
Yeah.
any Pokemon. She absolutely just would just panic to the point where I'm just like, okay, you're being the squeaky wheel. So and literally I didn't let my daughter watch it
Yeah.
or play the games or have the Pokemon cards.
And now,
Grandmother. So as a grandparent, you have to sometimes keep on and keep on, even if it's
yeah.
annoying, because
Yeah.
for her keeping on, I probably wouldn't do that. And then, the kids too, I will say, to any children out there, you also have to give your parents the license to do that, because
Right.
there are some of, my kids that, I don't have the license to do that with,
Right. Right.
so
Which is fair. I mean, they get to learn the hard way.
yeah,
I mean, it really is and it's probably the fastest and most prolific teacher is consequences.
yes.
But I think it's great, and I love that you're stepping out and doing this, and I'm so proud of you because I
Thank
don't
you.
even know you, but I've been asking people to do this. I really think that the more flooded they are with these channels, the more they'll realize, oh my gosh, it's like a protest. Everyone's showing
Yes.
up. Oh my
Yeah,
God, I had no
absolutely.
idea
That's
this were.
exactly right.
And the thing that I believe too is the ones that are the most resistant to it, because they are quiet or they don't like the limelight, they're probably the ones that should be doing it. They're
Yes.
probably the ones that aren't going to turn it into a narcissistic ego platform, but to actually use it for God's glory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've had, I've gone to mega churches. Women from my mega church were actually, when they start asking me questions, and very influential women from mega churches, not just, they're the ones that have been a part, but they're also very encouraging, which I very much appreciate, because it's like you said, it's not easy. I'm already attacked anyway. People
Right.
just, they have attacked for the wrong reason, because they think that it's all about politics, when it's really, for me,
Right.
absolutely nothing to do with politics.
Totally agree.
It's all about
Aligning with truth.
It's all about aligning with truth, and who is willing to tell us the most truth, who is willing to release that truth, and can we listen to it when it's all said and done. So that is the reason I have started putting everything on patriotsperspective.com as I have time. I welcome any other writers. And what I've been doing is taking information, from fall cabal and other things that people are saying. And I have been writing about it with either videos from us or others, and providing the actual proof. And believe it or not, these are government documents. My Dropbox is loaded with government documents. I have all of 3,000 of Dr. Fauci's emails for anyone who wants to see them and read them for themselves.
Right.
I have tried to go through and screenshot the areas where he is telling his own family and friends that masks are harmful, but yet he's turning around and telling the public something else. That is what the enemy does.
Right,
absolutely. That is what demons do. And we have to identify that, not put them on the front cover of Time magazine. We may have to create our own magazines, our own show.
Oh, I mean, I think everything's going to have to be rebuilt.
I mean, it is. I mean,
from a truth level, for sure. And what's great is it's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity for new things. And if we stop, if each person can unclick from the matrix, we will have a different world. And a lot of that comes from feeling safe without somebody else taking care of you.
Absolutely.
And you know, yes, there's going to be things you have to give up, but you will gain your freedom. And in the long run, you do not want your children to inherit a world where the freedoms are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that, Carmen, I just want to ask you one more question, because I know that our time is coming to an end. But when it comes to your daughter or your children in schools, when you homeschooled them, I know a lot of parents are looking for other means right now, and maybe they don't really have the means for private education. In my case, I did utilize No Child Left Behind, but I had to stay on the school quite a bit. Can you give some pointers maybe for what you would recommend for moms out there trying to homeschool, or are there certain programs that they should possibly participate in?
It's such a big question. The scope and sequence of education is never ending, right? So you have to figure out what's the scope of what I want to teach, what's the order I want to teach it. But you also have to look at how much time you have, how many resources you have, because it all depends on a lot of different things. But what I will say, I want to speak to the children that are being born now. These are children that were born for these times. And if we want to raise them up as true light warriors, we're going to have to give them the tools they need, not press the matrix into them. And so I would say a lot of what my children were not ever swayed by peer pressure. By the time my son made it to 8th grade, people would make fun of him for things, and he just didn't care. You know, it didn't have power, you know, at all over him. If anything, I feel bad because he was he was influencing people. I mean, he wasn't meaning to. He was just being himself. But I think that to help give your children every tool possible to let them unfold without the black glass.
Yes.
Because what can come through this black glass is so damaging. If you can keep your kids outside, in nature, naturally curious, their curiosity will take them much further than school ever would, in my personal opinion. I also think there's a lot of people that look at, I couldn't quit my job, or I couldn't do this, or I couldn't do that. I don't have the time. But it literally takes, if you focus, you can get school done in 2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
That gives
you
you
learn that much. They don't learn that much.
And most parents that are really good parents and very involved in their kids' thing and making sure their kids are going through their backpack and all that stuff, it takes at least an hour anyway. So you're really just adding an hour to your day. So you're gaining so much time. And I don't think you can put a price on that. And I would, if I obviously had a ton of money to work with, but if I didn't have the money, I would have done it anyway in hindsight, because I see how it developed them as unique individuals. They were not assembly line in any way, and they weren't religious in any way. It was very, very organic and very, and I do think they all have gifts. And I think the biggest mistake that parents make is we try to instill in them rather than looking at what they are and to start helping them unfold God's intelligent design within them.
Yeah.
I hope that answered it.
No, it absolutely does, because the timing. So I want to make sure that everybody heard, Carmen, the timing. I mean, if you think about the timing that you're spending, and I'm repeating this because it's important, the time that you're spending at night going through and trying to figure out maybe what the teacher means or what they said or what they did, you can probably be teaching your children the same thing. And I'm going to add a little bit to this, that you can be going through the curriculum in a couple of hours a day once you get used to it. And with my daughter being in public school, I think they can be out 90 days, believe it or not. It's actually quite a bit. And then they try to turn you over to CPS. I would push the limit. My daughter was out of school as much as possible, legally possible, because I would have probably had her out a lot more. She was an only child, so I didn't want to, her to have no interaction whatsoever. And she was a really good athlete, loved to be at school, to be truthful.
Right.
But she also loved to travel, so if you're a parent that travels and you have the ability to travel, I highly recommend that you take.
Mine were at board meetings. They were traveling with my former husband. They were going to meetings with me. They learned so much from that. I cannot tell you. And travel's huge. Those are all beautiful things.
Yeah. And my daughter went through a situation where she, speaking of giving your kids sometimes too much, when we were traveling one time, she had her Nintendo DS stolen because she wanted a bag that said Nintendo DS, and her dad bought it for her against my will. And of course, walking through the airport, she's like labeling herself what she has. Listen, I couldn't have been happier that I mean, I was sad for her because she was all upset, but I was happy at the same time that
there's games that are teaching children, they're teaching them witchcraft and curses and things like this. And this is an actual real thing that's happening.
Demon Slayer, by the way. There's a game. I was taking one of my contractors home the other day, and we had to stop and pick up his 6-year-old daughter. And she's in the back of the car, and I'm hearing Demon Slayer. And I'm like, what did I just hear? Turn that off now. And I looked at her dad and I said, you need to delete whatever that was from her phone. And he said, oh, that's her favorite cartoon. Like, it's named like Demon Slayer. And I'm like, yes, we are slaying demons, but.
Well, it's like that toy that they had, that the trolls or whatever, where they had a place between their legs that if you touched it, they would giggle.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The fact that even made it to the market.
Absolutely.
It's an abomination on I don't know how many adults that looked the other way for that one.
Yeah. And then, Carmen, one other thing, we're speaking of children and parents that may feel like they don't have time to get things done. Let's end it on a note of encourage. Like, I know that I did some things with my daughter, such as we had a list of house cleaning chores where she could earn money if she did certain chores. She wasn't forced to do them until we really needed them done, but she could earn money based on if the baseboards needed to be cleaned or something of that nature. And yes, we had a house cleaner, but her knees were bad. And, when Miss Barbara's knees got bad, and my daughter did the laundry, the dishes, other things, to the point where she's calling me from college saying, Mom, I'm the only person that actually
knows how to do it.
Laundry.
My son has taught all of his friends how to do laundry.
Yeah. So do you have any pointers for, the people at home in order to get the house chores done? Did you do anything like that with your kids? In terms of how to get things done that you typically would have to spend a lot of time on? Because I think if people realize, they can save on some things to better educate their kids. I think some people don't really think about that. So if you are a mom,
The first thing that comes to mind really for me is, I think people fight. They fight life so much. And one of the most beautiful things you can do is, as the mother or the father, whoever's the one that's taking on this responsibility of teaching your children, which, by the way, is one of the funnest things you'll ever do, because you get to know your kids in a way that you don't normally get to know when you're just helping them with their homework. And so when you're doing this, it's a responsibility, and some days can be really heavy. But the thing that I would say that is the most important thing is to really give yourself grace and allow yourself time to be in the Word, or to be doing things for your own self-care. Because when you do that, God automatically begins putting things in order for you. And it's like you have this partner, God, who is going to help you orchestrate your day if you give yourself time. But if you don't, there's like this resistance that begins happening, and there's some chaos that comes from that. And I think that people forget to organize spiritually so that they can be organized in the physical.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Thank you.
Carmen, thank you so very much.
Oh, yes, it's my pleasure.
I hope that we've encouraged a lot of you to do something, if it's, whether it's with your own children, or reaching out, to your school board if there's something you're not happy with, or just doing a little bit of research. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. And we'll definitely, I imagine both of us will be responsive, especially if you tag us in a comment. It may not, be as quick as you might like, because I don't, believe it or not, even though I'm into technology, I do not go around with my phone in my hand all the time.
That's
good. And I'm probably not as responsive as a lot of people would expect me to be, but I promise you I will respond. And Carmen, I'm sure you'll do the same, right?
Yeah. And what is the name of your YouTube channel?
It's Patriots Perspective News.
Okay.
So it's Patriots Perspective News.
Okay, so I will definitely go subscribe.
Sure.
And I highly suggest that you enjoy this journey. Have fun with it. Follow your instincts, and don't try to make your channel like anyone else's.
No.
Just be you, and the people who are drawn to you will come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be, in comparison to, low production, no nothing, put a Zoom up. That's
what I do.
Yeah.
People care more about what the content is than the
Yeah.
production, especially when it's things that really do help them, because so many people are struggling right now. There's a lot of pressure from every direction. So I want to just tell everybody to stay with it, keep turning it over to God, let go of it, get good at going through no man's land, being alone, being sovereign, being independent. It's really good for you in a lot of ways. So try to
question everything you've ever heard.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, as my daughter and I say at the end of our podcast, stay suspicious.
Yes, exactly. Stay in truth. This is the news behind the government's facade, because our government, even though, it sounds like a political statement, the government is the government, and there's all types of people in the government, and they all want something from us, the people. And we just always have to be aware, and so that we can keep our freedom.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yay, go be free.
Yay. Thank you, Carmen.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. And then you did the recording, so you should have it, but make sure you grab it as fast as you can.
Okay.
So that, because mine, after a certain period of time, they go off.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do it right now. Thanks, hon.
Okay.
Bye everybody.